Let's take a reminder now of the top stories here on Al Jazeera. US President Donald Trump has announced a surprise deal to normalise ties between the UAE and Israel. Under the agreement, Israel will suspend plans to annex Palestinian territory, although Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the annexation may still take place in the future. Palestine is recalling its ambassador to the UAE, calling the deal a betrayal and demanding it be retracted. Let's get more on this now. Sigurd Neubauer is an author and specialist on Middle East and Gulf issues. He joins us now via Skype from Washington. Thanks very much for being with us. So how significant would you say this is for the region?
This is a significant development. I think that the essence of the announcement today is really the timing, because really since 2008, this relationship between the UAE and Israel has been strategic in nature, and it has been growing incrementally ever since. The question is why now? And I think the answer is quite frankly tied into President Trump's re-election campaign.
And there's been some suggestion from the White House that Jared Kushner gave a briefing saying that other countries may come forward soon with similar deal, and private discussions that continuing that the White House is excited about. Who do we think might be next, and is that likely?
Well, I think that we have to look at it in context here, because there are 3 Gulf countries out of the 6 that have solid diplomatic relations with Israel. One of them, of course, is the United Arab Emirates, that has now become formal and strategic. And then there are Oman and Qatar. Oman and Qatar both have significant diplomatic relations with Israel. Qatar, as we know, cooperates on Gaza and helps the Palestinians. And Oman has a long historic friendship with Israel that goes back over 50 years in time. The question, of course, is will they follow suit? And I would not necessarily agree with that assumption. The relationships between these 2 countries and Israel will likely continue, but that does not necessarily mean that there will be formal diplomatic relations in the sense of what the United Arab Emirates achieved today.
The Palestinian leaders have called it a stab in the back. In the briefing, there was also a suggestion from Kushner that the halt on annexation was temporary, and he defined it as between a long time and a short time. Does that not really sort of dilute some of one of the key parts of the deal?
I don't think so, because from an Israeli and a Trump administration vantage point, they argue that the settlements are already there. And under any agreement with the Palestinians, these settlements would remain within Israel proper. So therefore, recognizing them is just justifying the status quo. That's their argument. Of course, in the Arab world, that is an argument that is a non-starter. But what the Trump administration is, of course, hoping to accomplish is that the Palestinians and the Israelis will return to direct negotiations, and within that scope can begin to hash out borders amongst themselves. So far, that has not happened, and the Trump administration's strategy is clearly to move past the Palestinians and push forward with the Gulf-Israel ties.
The reaction from Iran has been strongly against this, and they've called it a strategic mistake. What do you think Iran will do about this deal? Do you expect any kind of actual reaction other than words about it?
Well, I mean, Iran's position on this issue is clear, and Iran's relationship with the United Arab Emirates is very tense. We just saw, as a matter of fact, last night a tanker that was boarded right off Emirati waters by the Iranians. So Iran's relationship with the UAE is tense, and the UAE's decision to move forward with establishing diplomatic relations with Iran is going to antagonize Tehran. So Tehran's response in that matter was predictable.
Sigurd Neubauer, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts on the subject.
Thank you.